Hello? Okay. I don't think you realize how lucky you are until you take a step back and look at what you've done. That's exactly what I'm doing right now, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. What I just shared with you is something that I wrote down in my journal during my 48-hour solo. I think this quote can describe what I learned, what I experienced for those 4 months at the Island School. But let me take a step back and start from the beginning. For those of who I don't know yet, my name is Katie Harpin, and I spent this past fall semester at the Island School in the Bahamas. It's a semester program for sophomores and juniors similar to the High Mountain Institute in the Mountain School. I first heard about the Island School my freshman year from a girl who attended the fall of 9 semester. I was immediately intrigued by the program and went home that night and did my research. About a year and a half later, I found myself saying goodbye to my family and friends as I boarded a plane to the Bahamas. After a few layovers, I was officially in the Bahamas, even though it didn't feel like it. Where were the hotels, the restaurants, the tourists? It was just empty and deserted. Besides the extreme heat, this was not how I originally pictured the Bahamas to be. From that point on, I realized that the Island School would constantly be presenting me with new experiences throughout the next 100 days. Driving to the campus from the airport was another experience in itself. There was nothing left on the island due to hurricanes as well as the downfall in tourism. Houses were falling apart, groups of dogs, who I soon learned were called potcakes, loitered in the streets, young children were by themselves. The signs of an impoverished island were endless. But tucked in towards the bottom of the island of Eleuthera was a small campus, which soon became my home. Before we could even step on campus, they confiscated our cell phones and never told us the password to connect to the internet. Yep, that meant no texting, no Facebook, no YouTube or Netflix. We didn't even have a TV on campus. We were allowed 15 minutes of phone time a week, but that was it. But I would soon be living with 46 other students, a group of kids ranging from sophomores to seniors, prep school to private school, public school, American to Belgium, no two people being the same. My new home was a self-sustainable campus on the southern tip of Eleuthera, Bahamas. Our campus is sustainable in ways that I have never personally experienced before. Our energy came from solar panels and a wind turbine. Our drinking water was from the rain, and we even raised our own pigs to eat. For the first week, we played endless numbers of name games and got to know each other. Girls' dorm was radiating awkwardness at first, but before I knew it, we were having dance parties and acting as if we've all known each other our whole lives. I soon became used to my new way of living, even not flushing the toilet. Yep, it's true. We followed the rule, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. For the second week of school, we were split into 4 groups. The first 2 groups were to go on a 3-day kayaking trip, and the last 2 were to become scuba certified. I was put into K1, which meant I was the first to go on kayak. We were handed a list of what to pack and spent the night attempting to fit it all into our small dry bags. Kayak was hell. Although the trip was fun during the day, the mornings and nights were the worst. We couldn't leave our tent unless we wanted to be swarmed by bugs. And to enter the tent, we had to only unzip the bottom, then dive in quickly while someone shut it behind us. Imagine sitting in a sauna wearing high socks, long spandex under your sweatpants, a long-sleeve shirt with a rain jacket, and a bandana around your face. But wait, it gets better. While sitting by a fire. We had to basically cover every inch of our body from the bugs. Blood, sweat, and tears are the only words that can describe that trip. But after arriving back at campus, we jumped right into our scuba certification and got the hang of it quickly. After everyone completed their kayak trips and became scuba certified, it was time to begin the actual academic semester. It was a 5-week period where we had classes 6 days a week, sometimes from 9 in the morning till 8 at night. A lot of you must be thinking, academics were probably the least of our concerns while going to school on an island, but they were easily comparable to tasks, maybe even harder. The first few weeks were the hardest, though. Along with trying to adjust to this new atmosphere, we were introduced to a new way of learning. I took marine ecology, human ecology, math, English, history, and research. In every subject, we were given the opportunity to get out of the classroom and come in contact with the material we were learning, something that's called place-based learning. It was a different type of curriculum than what I'm used to at Taft, but what I learned there is worth more than a lifetime of schooling. From walking around the settlements for history to fishing with a local fisherman for human ecology, I have learned more than I ever believed I could. In addition to the many aspects of the curriculum, an important part of my human ecology class was our final assignment. We were given a collective 24 hours to design, put into action, and present our projects. They range from studying the coral reefs to tracking where the food we import truly come from. The head of the school proposed to us on the first day of the project that whoever had the most reasonable and convincing proposal would be funded $1,000 to help start their project. That gives you an idea of how realistic the Island School curriculum really is. Along with my 5 classes, I also took research. There were about 8 different research groups ranging from deep water sharks to biodigestion, with roughly 6 students in each one. We worked with CEI, which is a research institute connected with the Island School. Graduate students, scientists, government officials all work at CEI, and as Island School students, we were expected to perform at their level. I chose to work with lionfish, which are invasive fish species to the Caribbean. We would dive at different sites looking at the size and abundance of the lionfish we saw. Lionfish research is the only thing that can ever make you tired of scuba diving. At one point, we did 5 dives in an afternoon, which may sound like fun, but it's actually a lot of work. But before I knew it, I went from struggling with pronouncing the scientific name to explaining their invasion in front of prestigious scientists. After a 5 week of academics, we transitioned into kayak rotations. This was a 3-week span where we had a week of academics, an 8-day kayaking trip, and a 3-day down island trip. After a week of academics, 11 other students, 3 leaders, and myself set off on our trip. My kayak group decided to switch it up a little, and instead of just hiking, we chose to both kayak and hike. Once we reached Lighthouse Beach, which was our final destination, we started something called a solo. They separated each of us about 300 yards away from one another along the beach, and we were only allowed to bring one item besides the tarp that was given to us. I chose to bring a sleeping bag, but others chose their cameras, a hammock, etc. We were alone and isolated for a full 48 hours, 3 days and 2 nights. I wasn't sure what to expect before going into it and was actually nervous for what was ahead. During those 48 hours, I didn't talk or eat. It was a personal decision, but definitely a hard one, seeing those are the 2 things I do the most. I reflected on my life, my decisions, my opportunities, and my family. I became aware of the little things that I always seemed to take for granted. I gained a new respect and appreciation for my parents, my teachers, my coaches, and everyone else in my life. After returning from kayak, we set off on our down island trip the very next morning. Cape Eleuthera and its surrounding settlements soon became very repetitive and boring. It was time we explored the whole island, and what better way to do that than a road trip? We spent 3 days driving around in a van, exploring different parts of Eleuthera, as well as neighboring islands such as Harbor Island and Spanish Wells. During the day, we would drive and walk around various settlements and then camp out on the beach for the night. We also explored caves and old naval bases and even swam in a haunted lake filled with seahorses. Along with the curriculum and trips, physical exercise is a main component at the Island School. In the beginning of the semester, we had the choice to either train for a half marathon or a 4-mile open ocean swim. I knew I was most likely never going to get the chance to swim 4 miles in the ocean again, so I decided to do just that. It may have been a daring choice, seeing that I've never swam before besides the pool in my backyard, but what the hell? We had to be up and ready to go by 6:15 every morning, except for Wednesdays and Sundays when we got to sleep until 7:30. Woo! We started off each Monday with a run swim, which consisted of running to and through the cuts and basically doing a big loop back to campus. If you look in a second, there'll be a picture of the route we take. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we either swam or ran, depending on which event you decided to train for about 45 minutes, and on Saturdays, it was an hour-and-a-half long workout. On Fridays, we switched it up. It was called a Bizarro workout. The runners swam and the swimmers ran. At the end of the semester was the moment of truth. We were faced with the final challenge of the half marathon or super swim. In less than 4 months, I went from barely being able to doggy paddle to swimming 4 miles in the ocean in just under 2 hours and 20 minutes. Although everything I just talked to you about may seem memorable, the thing that has had the biggest impact on me was a small observation I made. During a settlement day for history class, I was walking on a small settlement and heard some kids yelling. I turned the corner to see 5 little Bahamian children throwing a half-deflated ball into a broken piece of wood with a plastic bucket attached to it. It broke my heart to see this, not because of the poverty within the settlement, but because it reminded me of everything I have taken for granted within my life. About a week later, I was walking through another settlement and saw a handful of kids running around a small patch of dirt and rocks. After a closer look, I realized that they were playing softball with a hefty piece of wood and a beat-up tennis ball. I suddenly felt this pull, telling me that I needed to do something about this. A few weeks later, my parents were packing to come down for Parents' Weekend. The night before they left, I snuck onto the phone to call my dad and tell him about my plan. The next day, I saw my parents for the first time in 3 months. After a very emotional greeting, my dad opened the trunk of the car and I saw a huge bag. In the bag was a set of catcher's equipment, 7 helmets, softballs, bats, and bases. I immediately began to get teary-eyed thinking about how valuable these items would be to the kid. Thank you, Dad, for making that possible. The next day, we visited Deep Creek Middle School and presented them with the equipment. The reactions and expressions on their faces were ones I will never forget. At that moment, I knew what I needed to do. I wanted to keep seeing their eyes light up, and their appreciation of such small things amazed me. After brainstorming possibilities with my dad, we decided to create an organization that will continue to put smiles on these kids' faces. We chose to call it One Helps, and through this, we are hoping to supply the island of Eleuthera and maybe other small Bahamian islands with sporting equipment, such as softball and basketball equipment, as well as track spikes. The junior class committee at Taft is considering doing a fundraiser to support One Helps, so keep your eyes open for that. Also, if you're interested, you could check out the website, www.onehelps.org. In closing, I just want to say that the past semester has been the most interesting, exciting, amazing, and overall life-changing time. I have learned so much about myself and my limits through various times during the semester. I can honestly say that before going to the island school, I did not appreciate how blessed I am. But while there, I began to appreciate the little things and I realized the importance of certain people to my life. Although I left my family behind to go there, I found a new family, one that will never leave me, one that will be with me through struggles and laughs, one that I can reminisce with 10 years from now, one that I can never say goodbye to. From this experience, I realized that it's okay to do something different, and in the long run, it's worth it. I hope I have inspired some of you to break free of the norm and try something new. I can honestly tell you that what I learned at the Island School will stay with you forever and help you grow as a person in so many ways. If anyone has any questions or is interested in applying, please feel free to email me or stop me in the hallway. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. Applications for next year are due by sometime in February, so you might want to get a head start. 2 representatives from the Island School made a trek up today from the Lawrenceville office and will be hanging around the coral room after this meeting, so please stop by if you have any questions. I would like to thank everyone who has influenced me to go to the Island School, as well as the great amounts of encouragement I received while applying. Especially my advisor, Mr. Hinman, for supporting me from the start, Mr. Wilson for making my transition back as easy as possible, Mrs. May for always encouraging me and listening to my stories, my mom and dad for making this opportunity possible and supporting me through my struggles, the girls varsity basketball team for welcoming me back with open arms, and finally, I want to say thank you to all my friends who are still there for me, even though I walked out of their lives for 4 months. To end, I have a short video that was created by a group of students in the spring 2011 semester for their human ecology project, talking about the Island School as a whole. But before I share the video, I would like to leave you with this quote. "A ship is safe in a harbor, but that's not what ships are for," by William Shedd. Thank you.
Welcome to the Island School!
I think a lot of students say, hey, Mom and Dad, I want to apply to the Island School. I want to go to the Bahamas for a semester. And the assumption, obviously incorrect, is that, you go on vacation. And so I think we had to recognize that was a red flag that existed. And I think from the very beginning, it carries through right now that, we push ourselves harder than any school, I think, physically, emotionally, intellectually. Across the board, I feel like we recognized that we had to do something really challenging and powerful for it to be accepted. And the great news is colleges have actually opened doors for young people who have said, hey, I'm taking a risk, I want to go off and make a difference. And so that red flag, we've pulled that down from the flag.
Fill the spaces with wooden places to make it feel like home. But all I feel is alone. Might be a quarter life crisis. Or just
Ya boom pineapple wine.